There's a saying here in Minnesota, Minnesota nice. And that Minnesota nice only goes so far. And Heidi Firkus, she went all the way. She was genuine, and she loved deep.
She definitely lived a life of love. That was the mark that she left. And that's hard to let go.
This is a terrible, terrible incident. We're hoping to find other physical evidence that might help us, lead us in a direction toward a suspect.
The morning of April 25th, 2010, at 6:30 a.m., Heidi Firkus calls 911.
Someone's trying to break into my house.
She tells the State Patrol dispatcher that someone is trying to break into her house, and she's trying to give her address.
1794 Minnehaha Avenue.
While she's on the phone, you can hear a loud noise, and the phone goes dead.
Well, I don't know where she went there.
Approximately a minute later, Nicholas Firkus calls 911, says that he and his wife have both been shot.
Okay, are you in St. Paul, sir?
St. Paul fire paramedics took Nick out to the ambulance and transported him to Regions Hospital. He had been shot in the leg. Heidi was struck in the back as she was trying to flee towards the kitchen. It was a shotgun blast that killed her right away. The shotgun was laying inside the front door area. There's a little foyer. Nick gave a brief story. He heard somebody fiddling around with the door, and that he then armed himself with a shotgun, and that Nick and the intruder struggled over the shotgun. The responding officers went up and down the block, tried to talk to neighbors.
I was next door house sitting when the crime happened. Really all I heard was kind of this agonizing yell of, "You shot her, you shot me."
It never felt right. The story never made sense to me. He tells investigators that he grabbed a shotgun, loaded it with 2 shells, and then proceeded to have Heidi go down the stairs in front of him towards the very door that this alleged burglar was at. Why you would send the unarmed person down in front of you is beyond me. To me, there were only 2 people in that house when Heidi was killed.
And they were?
Nick and Heidi.
In order to believe that Nick killed Heidi, you have to believe that a good man with no history of violence killed the woman that he loved more than anything in life for no reason. That's what you have to believe. We can't get there.
Well, this area of St. Paul, where Heidi and Nick Firkus lived, I would characterize as generally a quiet neighborhood.
Back in 2010, 9 years before she took charge of the Firkus case, Detective Nicole Sipes of the St. Paul Police Department was a patrol cop who worked this neighborhood.
Do you remember first hearing about the Firkus case?
I do.
Okay, are you?
It was early on a Sunday morning.
The 911 call was at 6:30.
Nick Firkus's story of a burglar didn't make sense to Sipes.
Most people are home at 6:30 on a Sunday morning, especially in a family neighborhood like that. The last thing that most burglars want to encounter are people.
Did police ever have any luck tracking down the intruder that Nick described?
No.
I'm looking, I didn't see anybody come out of that house.
Brandon O'Connor was house sitting next door to the Firkuses and taking care of kittens.
I was woken up by the kittens, kind of walking around. Some noise caught my attention, so stuck my head out the window, kind of listened.
Brandon says he recalls hearing a muffled argument coming from the Firkuses' house, listening through an open window.
That's when I ended up hearing what sounded like gunshots.
Around this time, Brandon said he also heard that voice crying out.
Kind of this agonizing yell of, "You shot her, you shot me, please, please, no," something along those lines, and then it was done.
First responders rushed to the scene. There was nothing they could do for Heidi. She was pronounced dead. Nick was rushed to the hospital and treated for a grazed gunshot wound to his leg. He seemed not to be sure whether or not Heidi had been killed.
Like I said, we'll do our best to find out how Heidi's doing, please.
Hours later, Nick was transported to the St. Paul Police Department.
Then Nick and I started to have our conversation in the conference room.
Sergeant Jim Gray took Nick's statement.
You know, I know this is a very traumatic situation, okay? And I'm just going to try and ease into it, okay? So
Nick said the couple ordered in food the night before and watched the movie Avatar. They went upstairs to their bedroom around 11 p.m. The next morning, Nick got up around 6 a.m. to get a drink of water from the bathroom.
Go back to sleep, but just kind of fitfully sleep for 10 or 15 minutes, and then I heard the screen door open. Kind of let it go for a little while, but then I started feeling with our doorknob.
And is Heidi still sleeping then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a rock.
Nick said he retrieved his shotgun from the closet.
I keep 2 shells for it just in case things go weird. So when I heard things this morning, I did load it. And then I wake up Heidi.
Okay.
According to Nick, he told Heidi someone was trying to break in and to call 911. As she spoke with the dispatcher,
Someone's trying to break into my house.
they headed downstairs so they could get out of the house.
What address are you at?
All right. So you going first down the stairs, or is she behind you, or is she in front of you, or what?
She's in front because I'm kind of trying to move her along quickly.
Yeah.
Nick said as they passed by the front door, it burst open.
Guy that was there, I think he grabbed the barrel. I don't remember exactly what happened, but the gun went off. So my fingers slipped onto the trigger.
Nick told Sergeant Gray during the struggle over the weapon, the gun fired, striking Heidi, who he said was in the kitchen.
Okay, so the
Gun's here,
Yep.
chest high.
Yep. You and I are like this.
Yeah.
And then the gun goes off.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know it hit Heidi. I know it did. She was running away, so he definitely hit her in the back.
Hit her in the back.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it.
Can't be true. There's no way.
Katina and Marcus Sarazin mentored Heidi at Calvary Church.
I think she's one of those people that you can't not like. Everyone liked Heidi.
She genuinely loved people. She was the life of the party, always finding fun ways to engage people, and she was very loyal.
The couple met at the church. And in 2005, Heidi, 20, and Nick, 22, got married.
Nick Furcus had a very warm and engaging personality, always smiling. He carried himself with confidence, and he had high character, high integrity in the church. That was the reputation he'd built for himself.
But just a few hours after Heidi's death, Sergeant Jim Gray found himself questioning Nick Furcus's account. He couldn't figure out why the couple would leave the safety of their bedroom.
You come upstairs, I hate to tell you this, but my house, I'm justified in killing you if you come breaking in my house.
Yeah, and I guess
Nick explained that the couple had a plan in place. If they were ever in a precarious situation, they would avoid a confrontation and escape to their car in the garage and get away.
If we can save ourselves, let's do that instead of getting into a situation where...
His story didn't make a lot of sense to me.
Sergeant Gray started probing into their marriage.
You guys have any problems or anything like that?
It's just the normal stuff, like, stresses about finances and quality time and vacations and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
you guys aren't behind in the bills or anything?
We are behind in the bills, which is a little stressful. In fact, we were planning on moving tomorrow.
Moving where?
Well, we hadn't figured that out yet. We were, and this is a hard It's a hard place for us. We foreclosed on our house.
Nick revealed they were behind on their mortgage payments and just 24 hours away from being evicted from their home.
Well, that's kind of close notice.
It is, and I think the reason is because we're both kind of dealing with the shape of the whole thing.
Gray says his suspicions were raised, and minutes later, he was struck by the way Nick asked about Heidi.
Well, I just want to know the final answer on Heidi.
She didn't make it.
I figured that. I mean,
Is that typically how someone asks if their loved one or spouse has been killed?
Not only is that not typical that that's how they'd ask it, but they wouldn't wait an hour and 40 minutes into this conversation to ask that question. And I've watched the interview, obviously, numerous times, and I understand people react to trauma differently. But this was different than what I'd seen. Anybody that's watched that interview cannot help but be struck by Nick's demeanor during it.
And that demeanor was?
This was just another day. This was something he had to get through.
Skeptical of Nick's story, Sergeant Gray confronted Nick about what happened that day.
Nick, part of me wants to ask you this question. Did you have anything to do with this?
no, absolutely not.
Okay,
Absolutely not.
all right.
Why is there a party that wants to ask that?
Well, Nick, I'm a police officer, okay?
Yeah.
I gotta ask the tough questions, all right?
After the interview, Nick left the police station. That day, investigators returned to the Firkus home with a search warrant. Gray says it did not look like anyone was planning to move out the next day.
Nothing was packaged up at all. The closet was still full of clothes. We noticed that there was still food in the refrigerator.
And there was something else that investigators questioned.
We didn't see any signs of forced entry into the house. Based off of the physical evidence at the scene, his version of the incident couldn't be plausible.
What do you think of Nick's story about the intruder? Chat now on Facebook and X.
48 hours after Nick Firkus said an intruder shot and killed his wife Heidi, police went back to the crime scene to check out his story.
He told us that there was a life and death struggle inside the house.
But Sergeant Gray says the evidence at the crime scene didn't match Nick's account.
There was a vase, some receipts, a beer bottle, and none of that was knocked over. So that kind of raised suspicion to us that if there was such a struggle, why wasn't any of this stuff knocked over?
Sergeant Gray says he examined the front door for signs of a break-in and did notice some markings.
But it wasn't anything new that would lead us to believe that the door had been forced open the day of the murder.
In his interview, Nick said he heard someone fiddling with the front door from upstairs.
Like, what are they doing? Are they just going like this?
Yeah.
Kind of like that?
Yeah, just shaking the knob and shutting the door.
That day, Sergeant Gray and his colleagues did a reenactment
April 27th, 2010.
to determine if they could hear the front door shaking from the bedroom.
We're in the bedroom looking.
Sergeant Shackle and Sergeant Wright were upstairs in the bedroom.
I'm at the front door, so let me know when you guys are ready. I'll try the knob for 15 seconds then.
We are ready.
They could not hear me fiddling with the door.
All right.
Sergeant Gray says he also doubted Nick's story about the couple's eviction and a scheduled move the day after Heidi was shot.
There didn't appear to be anything boxed up or packaged up to go. There were a few empty boxes in the dining room area. There was not a grand stack of boxes or anything for that matter that would lead us to believe that they were going to pack up all in one day.
Meanwhile, Heidi's mentors from Calvary Church, Marcus and Katina, were learning the details about her death and the eviction.
It just didn't add up. Something wasn't right with that story.
It seemed so out of the ordinary that she would be moving and not have notified anyone, not have anything prepared for that, because she planned things out. and she liked things to be orderly.
On April 30th, 2010, 5 days after her passing, Marcus and Katina attended Heidi's funeral.
Yeah, the atmosphere at the funeral there was a lot of emotion.
At the funeral, Marcus and Katina say they were struck by Nick's demeanor.
I remember going through the receiving line and shaking his hand. There was no grief showing.
It just felt like he lacked emotion.
Marcus says he went as far as asking some of the couple's friends if Nick could have shot his wife.
And the answer I got was, no, there's no way that Nick killed Heidi. He loved her. There's just no way he could have done that. And I just wasn't so sure about that.
From what we gathered during our investigation, Nick and Heidi were in a loving relationship. There was no problems or issues that anybody saw.
Your first impression upon meeting Nick Firkus is no way in the world could he have committed a violent act.
The day after the shooting, Nick's family hired attorney Joe Friedberg, who advised Nick to stop talking to the police.
It didn't take long to realize that he was being looked at as a suspect.
When investigators asked Nick to sit down with their artist to draw a sketch of the intruder, Friedberg advised him not to.
They were going to use it as an opportunity to further interview him.
Instead, Nick and his attorney hired their own sketch artist.
It was quite odd that Nick would work with a private sketch artist.
And brought that drawing to police.
And at that point, we were basically told that Nick would not be answering any more questions with regards to our investigation.
Investigators released Nick's sketch to the public, but it didn't generate any leads. They kept working the case. Nick moved out of their home a few weeks after Heidi's death. 2 months later, he began a friendship with the sister of one of Heidi's best friends, Rachel Sanchez, who is going through a divorce.
At the time, I thought because we shared something traumatic, there was a deep connection there. Because I had come out of something traumatic myself in a relationship, I think Nick seemed to be handling things well. It felt like he was very grounded. He was with his friends a lot, and they were processing together. So I think just his steadiness was an attractive quality.
Rachel says the two bonded over their faith. They began dating in the spring of 2011.
At the time, God played a big part in my life, and I think that's another quality that I saw in him, that he loved God like I did.
1 year into their relationship, Nick proposed.
I knew it was coming. We had looked at rings beforehand, so it wasn't really a huge surprise.
And a few months later, the couple married. They started a family.
We did have kids pretty quickly.
And soon were the parents of 3 children.
He absolutely loves his kids so much.
Andrew and Emily Erickson are friends of Nick. They say for a long time, Nick didn't talk much about Heidi's murder.
Yeah, it just didn't seem like there was a lot of room for his grief during that time.
But they say when he did talk about it, his story was always the same.
What did he tell you?
Same thing he's always told everyone from the first day, same thing he'd tell you today, that someone was breaking into the house and they were going to try to get out, and there was an altercation, and tragically Heidi was killed.
Investigators still did not believe that story. But 5 years after Heidi's death, with little movement in the case, they finally got a break. Someone called in a tip.
There was somebody that looked exactly like the sketch.
And put a name to Nick's sketch.
Somebody called, said, I have an experience with this guy. I think I know who it is.
After 5 years without a break in Heidi Firkus's murder case, out of the blue, a tipster called police with a name. After seeing this sketch of the suspect, but there was a problem, says investigator Sipes.
He was already in prison on the date of Heidi's death.
Nick's second wife, Rachel, says her husband rarely talked about the case being solved.
But I had asked him, are you going to put effort into seeing if you can find the person that did this? He didn't reach out to anyone as far as I know. I know that from his lawyers, he was told to just stay silent.
Police found it odd Nick never checked in.
Through 4 investigators, in this case, he never contacted one of us to ask the status.
Was this case ever considered a cold case?
It wasn't ever considered a cold case because
prosecutors Rachel Crocker and Elizabeth Lawman joined the investigation in 2015.
There just was not a lot of new information coming in.
Heidi's family would check in on her birthday. Is there anything new development?
And there would be new developments when Detective Sipes took over Heidi's case in 2019.
Seems her fresh set of eyes really made a huge difference.
It was absolutely critical.
I think Sipes definitely restarted something.
Sipes dug deep, reviewing the entire case file, including an examination of a financial timeline she compiled with the help of the FBI.
I had the luxury of looking back on all of these things several years later.
Sipes learned Nick worked at his family's carpet installation business. They were contractors for Home Depot. Heidi was a clerk at a financial services company in St. Paul. Their combined income was about $70,000 a year.
They seemed like they were on top of all the bills before they bought the house.
But Lawman says the home purchase in 2007 strained the couple's finances.
And that home was just too much for them.
By the time Heidi died in April of 2010, the couple was deeply in debt.
He had not paid the mortgage in 22 months.
In fact, the couple had lost their home to foreclosure and would be forced to move out. But Sipes discovered Heidi apparently had no idea. After reviewing the couple's texts and emails, Sipes saw no evidence Nick ever told Heidi they were in financial trouble.
There was no communication between the two of them to indicate that she had any idea the depth of their financial issues. I was able to determine through the foreclosure and eviction attorneys that there was no paperwork Heidi had signed, that nobody had ever talked to Heidi, nobody met Heidi. Heidi didn't go to the eviction hearing on March 8th, 2010.
Sipes says Nick and Heidi's family and friends didn't know the couple had to relocate.
And if she was serious about moving, she would have gotten the day off.
So she was planning to go to work?
Yes.
Why do you think he kept her in the dark so long?
Shame. I believe he was concerned about the shame of what he had done, how it would look, that he couldn't come clean with her. You know, it had gotten too big at that point.
And when Sipes talked to the couple's friends, she learned why Nick wanted to hide their financial situation.
He was described by his friends as being wise and being the person that they would go to for advice.
Nick Furcus really presented as somebody who had some of those bigger, tougher life questions figured out. What kind of person do you want to be? What kind of relationship do you want to have with God?
What does that tell you as you're investigating the case and you see someone in that type of personality?
It just became easier to see that this was someone who did not want his friends, his family, to know the extent to which he had failed.
Sipes says she discovered more of Nick's lies when she learned about a conversation Heidi had with a friend just the day before she died.
Heidi had talked to us about how Nick had told her that they were victims of identity theft. It was somewhere around $180,000 to $200,000 worth of identity theft. Wasn't true. They weren't the victims. This was all untrue.
But as Sipes tried to figure out if there was a connection between Nick's lies and Heidi's death, she learned Nick and Rachel had divorced.
I remember very well when Nikki Sipes came to my door.
And that Nick had also kept secrets from her.
Did Rachel ever say anything about why their marriage dissolved?
She did. There were financial issues between the two of them. Nick was lying about a lot of things.
This is a story that's happened before and it didn't end well. That terrified me.
Could there actually have been an intruder?
After spending 19 months digging deep into the Firkus case file, reviewing crime scene photos, 911 calls,
Do you remember what he was wearing?
and Nick's video interview,
She was running away, so he definitely hit her in the back.
investigator Nicole Sipes had come to one conclusion.
What really matters is what happened in that foyer. And there was no third person.
You never found anyone else's DNA?
No. No DNA evidence, no physical evidence, no sign of a struggle. To me, there were only two people in that house when Heidi was killed.
And they were?
Nick and Heidi.
As part of the new investigation, Sipes reached out to Nick's second wife, Rachel. What did she know?
In 2020, she came to my door and I was like, "Why are you here?" And she was like, "To talk about Heidi Firkus."
At first, Rachel, then divorced from Nick, says she was reluctant to talk.
You're asking for a lot when you get involved in something like this. And I didn't want to, but I also knew that it was the right thing to do and it was for truth.
Rachel told Sipes Nick had lied about their finances during their marriage.
I found a letter saying that we hadn't paid our property taxes and that we were going to get evicted in 2020 if we didn't pay them. And when I saw that, I was like, oh no, like he was definitely repeating the same things as he did with Heidi with me.
During that time, Rachel says Nick's dishonesty started to make her question whether he had also lied about Heidi's death.
And I said, we got to sit down and talk.
Rachel secretly recorded the conversation on her phone.
Your actions have caused me to just distrust you completely. If there was going to be a confession, I was going to make sure that I could prove that he said it. And the fact that you're lying was so easy for you to do in front of me over and over and over makes me think
That I could murder my wife.
that you could lie about something.
That I could murder my wife.
Yes. When I listen, I think this silence kills me. He's angry at me. How dare I think those things? Why aren't you saying you didn't? Tell me I'm not right.
Rachel later shared the recordings with investigator Sipes.
The behavior that he exhibited in his marriage with Rachel was almost duplicative of how he hid things from Heidi.
We cannot let this man be out on the street any longer.
For prosecutor Elizabeth Lawman, the time had come to act.
I told Sergeant Sipes, we're charging him. Let's do it.
11 years after Heidi was shot to death, on May 19, 2021, a St. Paul police SWAT team arrested Nick Firkus at his house and charged him with second-degree murder. A grand jury ultimately indicted Firkus on first- and second-degree murder charges.
Our minds were absolutely blown.
Heidi's friends, Marcus and Katina, were relieved.
It's hard to say. I don't know what emotion you even put to it. It's hard to say excited.
Yeah, I felt grateful. We don't understand.
Nick's friends, Emily and Andrew.
You have to believe that a good man with no history of violence killed the woman that he loved more than anything in life for no reason. That's what you have to believe. We can't get there.
After remaining free on bail for almost 2 years, on January 27, 2023, Nick Firkus went on trial. Prosecutors would not be allowed to call Nick's second wife, Rachel, to testify or use her taped conversation with Nick. The judge ruled her testimony and the recording had no bearing on the case.
I went into it with an open mind.
Natalie Michael served on the jury.
Did he appear like a man who would kill his wife?
No, he did not. A lot through the trial, he was putting his head down. When they showed the photos of the two of them together, you know, he seemed like he really was in love with her.
I think Nick was someone who lived two lives.
Prosecutors presented an unusual motive. They told the jurors Nick Firkus staged a burglary because he was desperate and ashamed. His secrets were about to be revealed to Heidi and everyone else.
all of his kind of cards of lies are about to crumble. He would have been exposed as a complete failure, a liar to his friends and community, and instead, he's a victim. He walks away from this supported by his friends, supported by his family.
Nick had no reason.
Nick's lawyers, Joe Friedberg and Robert Richmond, say that simply makes no sense as a motive.
There was nothing about murdering the woman who everyone agreed he loved that would help his situation.
And they say the state's contention that Heidi didn't know about the couple's finances simply was not true.
Nick said she was in on all of the major decisions. He would say to us that they're making Heidi out to be an imbecile.
At first, I was wondering how she couldn't know about the finances or some of the foreclosure, some of the things happening.
But Natalie Michael says the prosecution's case did not hinge on motive.
The prosecution said it really is, was there an intruder in the house or was there not an intruder?
It was our position that there had been an intruder, exactly the way Nick described to the police on the 911 call, at the scene.
The information that Nick gave at the scene is that this intruder came into the house.
At the hospital.
He just came in.
And to Sergeant Gray.
Guy that was there, I think he grabbed the barrel.
Nick's lawyers say police didn't find the intruder's fingerprints or DNA at the scene because, as Nick told investigators in his interview at the hospital,
And what else can you describe from him?
the intruder was wearing gloves.
Gloves. He's wearing gloves.
You don't always leave DNA, and especially when your hands are covered.
So what am I looking at here?
But prosecutors say there was something else missing from the scene besides fingerprints.
This is a physical model to scale that was created by the FBI.
They used this model to show the jurors there was no evidence of a struggle.
I felt that it was very important for us to be able to recreate how small that entryway is.
Let's say the intruder gets in, they have this struggle.
And they have this life and death struggle right in this area with nothing disturbed.
On the table.
Exactly. And then Heidi gets shot square in the back in a very clear shot.
This animation, created by the FBI, shows that the bullet that killed Heidi was most likely shot from shoulder level.
The height at which Heidi is shot fits exactly on Nick's shoulder to aim and to fire.
Nick's attorneys say there was direct evidence that showed there was an intruder.
In fact, there were tool marks in the door, which would be consistent with someone wedging a screwdriver between the frame and the door.
Attorney Joe Friedberg says Furcus's next-door neighbor, Brandon O'Connor, testified he heard a voice.
You shot her, you shot me, please, please, no, something along those lines.
That means there must have been another person in that house. Nick was talking to a third person when he said that.
But prosecutors say Brandon may have misheard Nick while he was on the phone with the 911 dispatcher.
He is screaming about being shot, and he did that over almost 7 minutes.
Stay on the phone with me, okay?
Nick Furcus did not take the stand. After an 11-day trial, the case went to the jury.
If there's anything in this case, there's reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
See more evidence from the case at 48hours.com.
It was a hard-fought, litigated trial.
As the state and Nick Furcus's defense team presented their closing arguments on February 10th, 2023,
we had great, we thought, circumstantial evidence that what Nick said happened did not happen.
attorneys on both sides were hopeful the jury would make the right decision.
It's not enough if you have a hunch. There was no direct evidence that Nick murdered his wife.
In her closing argument, Prosecutor Crocker said Firkus shot Heidi while she was on the phone with the 911 operator.
Someone's trying West.
So that call does end with a very, very loud noise, and the call goes dead. And we believe that that's the gunshot.
According to phone records, 65 seconds passed from that moment until Firkus made his 911 call. Crocker reenacted for jurors what she believed Nick Firkus did before he made that call.
I walked over in the courtroom to roughly as far as Heidi would have been on the ground, crouched down, turned her over to check for a pulse to be sure that she was in fact deceased. Walked back over, picked up the firearm, and demonstrated how he could shoot himself and call 911.
Where is the guy that shot you?
At 65 seconds, there was more than enough time for all of that to happen.
To prove their theory Firkus shot himself in the thigh, they point to marks left by shotgun pellets at the bottom of the front door.
When he shot himself, we believe that Nick was about here. Just how you would brace yourself, probably against the door if you're doing it to yourself.
Of his reasonable suspicion.
But Firkus's attorneys challenged the 65-second time frame. Attorney Robert Richmond says phone records also show Firkus misdialed 2 numbers before getting through to 911, making it impossible to shoot himself.
What they reenacted was 65 seconds, which was ignoring the 2 misdials, which happened at 38 seconds. The fact that we cannot find the intruder is not evidence that there was no intruder. And if anything, because of the next door neighbor, because of the tool marks, because of the 38 seconds, we feel that the evidence supports that there was an intruder.
This isn't blind belief.
Nick's friends Emily and Andrew were convinced the prosecution failed to prove Firkus was the shooter.
We were open to hearing an inconsistency of what Nick said, but that didn't happen.
On February 10th, 2023, the jurors got the case and in 5 hours returned with a verdict.
My last text to Nick was, it has to be innocent. There's no way that they got to guilty this quickly. We rushed to the courthouse and we were so wrong.
Nick Firkus was found guilty on 2 counts of murder, premeditated and intentional.
I believe justice was served.
Marcus and Katina were in the courtroom when the verdict was read.
Justice may have been slow, but fortunately, the jury got it right. It feels like this is the beginning of healing. It's the beginning of a new chapter.
Heidi's mom actually said that for so many years, they had to live with Nick Firkus's narrative, and they knew it was wrong, but they just didn't have another narrative. And to finally be able to have him finally held accountable, it meant a lot to us.
For Sergeant Sipes, there is still the mystery of what led to the couple's financial problems.
We weren't able to definitively say what the money was spent on.
Does that frustrate you?
Greatly. I think it would help complete the picture for some people.
On April 13th, 2023, Nick Firkus was back in court for a sentencing hearing and to hear victim impact statements.
Growing up, Heidi was the quintessential little sister to me.
Heidi's brother, Peter Erickson.
Because of the lies we were told as early as the day after her murder, it's been virtually impossible to find closure to our grief.
Firkus refused to admit guilt.
I do maintain and will maintain to my dying breath my innocence of this crime. My body stands condemned to serve another man's sentence. But my soul remains free.
Judge Leonardo Castro imposed the maximum sentence.
It is the sentence of law and judgment of this court that you be committed to the Commission of Corrections for the remainder of your life without the possibility of release. Good luck to you, sir. Godspeed.
My kids are always what I think of first.
Furcus's second wife, Rachel.
They lost in this too, because one day they had a dad that they thought was somebody, and the next day he's not that person anymore.
She often thinks about Heidi too.
I like to think I have a connection with Heidi. She didn't get to have the voice that I have now, and so I can only hope that my voice is something she would be proud of.
Heidi was a genuine, loving, sincere young woman who wanted to live life to the fullest. She wouldn't want people to become bitter or angry because of what she had to experience. I think that Heidi would want people to choose to love, regardless of circumstances.
CBS next Saturday. 48 Hours brings you back-to-back episodes all summer long. Next week, social media clues.
Johnny Altinger would answer a dating ad and disappear.
She would track his location.
48 Hours crime time double feature. Next Saturday on CBS, streaming on Paramount+.
This is definitely one of the stranger cases I've covered. It seems like it comes right out of a novel. On November 12th, 2012, Jake Nolan set out to the office and home of Dr. Michael Weiss. Jake had with him a duffel bag with a massive sledgehammer, a steak knife, zip ties, and he's walking through the streets of Manhattan with this.
When you walked into Dr. Michael Weiss's office with that duffel bag, with the weapons that were inside, what did you intend to do?
You know, I intended to kill him.
This is not a whodunit. He did what he was accused of doing. But the big question was, why? I saw Jake Nolan brainwashed by Dr. Pamela Buckbinder.
An Ivy League trained psychiatrist.
She's brilliant.
I would have done anything for Pamela. It happens so slowly that you don't really recognize this growing feeling inside of you that one day you wake up and say, I'll kill for this woman.
By the end of this manipulation by Dr. Bookbinder, Jake Nolan had become weaponized to attack Dr. Weiss, the man with whom she had been fighting over custody of her son.
They hated each other, and in turn, she made me hate him. She had already told me that she wanted me to hit him over the head, playing like, you know, Maxwell's Silver Hammer by the Beatles repeatedly in the house.
Bang, bang, Maxwell's Silver Hammer made sure that she was dead.
Jake Nolan suffered from bipolar disorder. He had these learning problems. He had personality problems.
Pamela took someone who she knew was severely mentally ill, and she morphed me into whatever she wanted me to be, and I obeyed, just like a puppet.
She used him for her own benefit. She sacrificed him.
His office door was open, and I see Michael sitting in a chair. I think this is really when I became fully psychotic.
I don't buy Jake's story that he was brainwashed and manipulated. He knew exactly what he was doing.
And do you believe that each step of the way, Jake could have made the decision to leave?
Of course he could have.
And Dr. Bookbinder claims that she had no involvement at all in this, that anything Jake Nolan did, he did completely on his own.
911, where's emergency?
Hi, I can hear someone out in my hallway screaming in pain, but I don't know what's going on out there, and I'm afraid to go out.
And what was so odd about this is he didn't try to flee. Jake Nolan starts snapping selfies of himself, covered in blood.
I mean, who would possibly snap a selfie of themselves right after they tried to murder someone?
There's never going to be a night I don't fall asleep feeling awful for what I've done.
To this day, Jake Nolan insists his mind was not his own when he set out to kill Dr. Michael Weiss at his office on November 12, 2012.
The knife was in my pocket and the sledgehammer was over my shoulders. He sees the sledgehammer and charges at me, and I reached for the knife. Here I am with this knife and the guy's bleeding and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is terrifying. It's as if I woke up from a bad dream.
After Jake stabbed him, Dr. Weiss fought back furiously. Both men ended up in the hallway of the Manhattan high-rise.
911, raise emergency.
This guy's screaming like crazy for help.
Both men were rushed to the hospital, where Jake was placed under arrest for attempted murder and handcuffed to his bed. In the weeks ahead, Jake's bizarre story unfolded. His claim that he had been manipulated to kill by his own cousin, psychiatrist Pamela Bookbinder.
My experience with Pamela, looking back, was incredibly frightening, incredibly frightening.
Jake's target that day, Michael Weiss, was Pamela's ex-boyfriend and another psychiatrist. Do you believe he was brainwashed?
Yes. To be honest, I try and come in here as little as possible because it's just too many memories.
Debbie and Jim Nolan, Jake's parents, are devastated.
He is basically a really good kid who doesn't have a mean bone in his body.
Jake Nolan, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Jacob. When we met Jake in the summer of 2016, he seemed rational.
I've been on meds now for over a year and a half that have finally worked for me.
But he says that wasn't always the case. Jake's parents insist that to understand how and why their then 20-year-old son could have been conditioned to kill, you have to go back to his childhood.
Jake was our third and our youngest child. He was an absolute delight. He was gifted, he was smart, he liked to invent things.
But Jake also had problems. By the age of 5, he was diagnosed with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
There was something with him that just wasn't the same as everybody else, and we started to notice significant changes in his personality and his demeanor around the ages of 14, 15.
What did you see?
He went through these large mood swings.
Still, Jake had moments of brilliance while in high school in Miami. He made news after he won a prestigious contest, co-inventing a study tool app for iPhones called Flash Me.
And then a month later, I couldn't get out of bed. My parents bribed me with everything to get out of bed. Please get out of bed. Please get out of bed, Jake. You gotta go to school. Please go to school today. Don't miss another day of school.
Jake was then diagnosed with depression and anxiety. These episodes worsened to the point where at the age of 17, Jake threatened to kill himself.
He got a butcher knife from downstairs and he took it upstairs to his room and he said he was going to kill himself. We were terrified.
Jake was hospitalized and was also diagnosed with bipolar disorder.
Bipolar disorder is a severe and chronic mental illness that's characterized by severe mood swings.
Psychiatrist Dr. Sasha Bardet has evaluated Jake for the defense.
Swings that go from deep, dark, suicidal depressions to periods of incredible elation, grandiose ideas, poor judgment. He's a mess. He's such a prisoner of his own mind that he can't get anywhere in life.
There's not a day that goes by that I don't think of killing myself.
By the time Jake was in college, doctors had prescribed some 30 medications to treat him, with little success. Some of these medications change brain chemistry, do they not?
Well, these are powerful psychotropic medications. His disorder, his problems were so profound, sometimes he's taking 4, 5, 6 medications at once.
Jake admits he was also doing illegal drugs and drinking, barely making it to class. The Nolans thought their prayers had been answered when Dr. Pamela Bookbinder, Debbie's own niece, offered to help.
We thought this was great. I adored Pam.
You trusted her.
I trusted her with my most prized possession, my child.
The plan? Jake would live part-time with Pamela in her Manhattan apartment. She would give him therapy sessions and monitor his meds. In return, she proposed he help take care of her then 4-year-old son, Calder, in spite of Jake's mental illness.
Pamela and I had formed a relationship when I was really young. I mean, this is my cousin. This is someone I really knew. And I entrust everything into this one woman. I mean, this woman is gonna save my life.
By all accounts, the plan seemed to be working.
I thought he was very happy, and I thought he was quite stable.
So you guys must have felt everything's coming together here.
Thank you.
Finally.
Thank you.
Right?
But the Nolans now say sending their son to live with Pamela was the biggest mistake they have ever made.
It's a total horrible nightmare.
To hear more of the 911 calls, join us on Facebook at 48 Hours.
When Jake Nolan went to live with his psychiatrist cousin, Dr. Pamela Bookbinder, he had no idea he'd end up on the front lines of a physical and psychological war.
The relationship between Dr. Bookbinder and Dr. Weiss was very toxic from the outset.
Reporter Rebecca Rosenberg has covered the case for the New York Post.
The relationship was on again, off again. There were allegations of domestic violence on both sides.
It definitely got physical.
Roland Acevedo is an attorney for Dr. Michael Weiss.
Is it true that Pam once attacked Michael with broken glass?
She was arrested and charged with an assault. He received stitches. I mean, there's physical proof that he was attacked.
Is it true that Michael Weiss has also been arrested in the course of this war with Pam?
Yes. Pamela contended that Michael threatened her or attempted to assault her.
In each incident, the charges were dismissed. But the war of the psychiatrists moved onto another battlefield, the courtroom, as Pamela and Michael fought over the custody of their son.
These are two psychiatrists. Couldn't they talk it out?
There was no communication.
But back during the times when he and Pamela were communicating big time, Michael Weiss attended family parties, including Jake's bar mitzvah.
Well, Pamela and I just want to wish you congratulations on your bar mitzvah. We're both so happy for you.
We were inspired by all of the speeches about opportunity and charm and character, and we think you have them all.
And that makes it even more incredible that Jake would target him.
This is a man who respected me and who I respected greatly.
Michael and Pamela never married and broke up for good soon after their son Calder was born.
Ready?
Yeah. When Calder was 4, Pamela asked Jake to be her child's godfather. Shortly before, she took Jake in. Jake's mother is convinced. That is when Pamela began to manipulate his mind.
Jake had been feeling so bad about himself. And here, all of a sudden, I'm so important to Calder. Everything I do has to be right.
This was a kid that I loved more than life.
Jake wants a normal life.
Defense psychiatrist Sasha Bardet says Pamela knew how to give Jake the life he craved.
He wants to be a successful, respected family man with a nuclear family and a happy life.
There's a photograph of the three of you in bed, basically in your underwear. What should we take from that picture?
I guess that just goes to show you the level of comfort that I really felt there. It was not unusual in the morning for her to invite me into bed with Calder and I, and to share that familiar moment. You know, really feel like a family together.
But Dr. Bardet finds these images deeply troubling.
When you think that you're seeing pictures of essentially a patient and his psychiatrist, it's really horrific. It's really creepy.
Just as troubling for Jake's family were text messages discovered on his cell phone.
Let me read to you some of the texts that Pam Bookbinder sent to Jake. You're just the most fun person to love. You're so beautiful. She'd call him lovey, sweet Jay. You are remarkable. You are brilliant. I have so many thoughts about you.
Well, this is almost sickening. And there was never any romantic or sexual relationship ever between these two people. So what this is all mental manipulation.
I miss you terribly, she would say when you were away. That sounds romantic.
You know, it does. I don't know what her intentions were to this day. I wouldn't be able to tell you.
And as Pamela was apparently building Jake up, he says she was tearing Michael Weiss apart, claiming Michael was refusing to pay Calder's child support, and worse.
She had me convinced that he was being molested at his father's home.
And how many times did she say this? Was this repeated over and over?
Oh, this was every day.
Has Michael Weiss ever abused his son in any way?
Absolutely not. Michael worships that child.
Jake, what real evidence did you have that Michael was sexually abusing his son?
There was no evidence.
But at the time, Jake says, that's how Pamela was able to pull him into the plot to kill Michael Weiss.
Part of the indoctrination process was to get Jake to participate in developing the plan.
And the plan, if you believe Jake, was horrific.
Pamela was determined for me to torture Michael before killing him. She wanted me to inject him with some, poisonous chemicals. She wanted to burn him alive in front of a group of people.
Jake's story is dramatic, but is it true? Despite Jake's accusations, he was the only one charged. But Michael Weiss sued Dr. Bookbinder for the attack, and in court papers, she calls the claims against her utterly baseless and states, "I never asked Mr. Nolan to attack or harm Mr. Weiss."
Dr. Bookbinder also claims that there's no smoking gun here. There's no evidence of emails or text messages that show that she and Jake plotted this together.
You can't deny the footage that shows her in Home Depot buying a sledgehammer.
Jake insists this surveillance video at a Home Depot in New York City proves his claims. That's Pamela standing next to him, paying for the very tool that police would find the next morning on the floor of Michael Weiss's office.
Jake, there's no one that really disputes that you suffer from mental illness. But could you have another problem as well? Could you be a sociopath?
No, I could not. Had I never met Pamela Bookbinder, this wouldn't be my story.
As Jake Nolan's eyes opened on the morning of November 12, 2012, the day he was supposed to kill Michael Weiss, he says he wasn't alone.
Pamela was there in bed, rubbing my back, telling me how much she loved me, that I was a savior, that I was the greatest person ever, that no one else understood her.
Just the night before, Pamela had bought this sledgehammer at a Home Depot in New York.
That is Pamela Bookbinder paying for the sledgehammer. She's right there, she has cash in her hand.
With plans, Jake claims, of having him bash her ex-boyfriend in the head.
You know, I intended to kill him.
Jake says that Pamela's lovey-dovey mood quickly changed as she allegedly packed a duffel bag with weapons.
She was hysterical, crying tears as she put the sledgehammer into a duffel bag with a kitchen knife.
Like she's packing a bag to head off to school, except this is to head off to a murder.
Exactly.
And there was one more item that was vital to the scheme.
The night before, she had provided me with the map and how to get into his apartment. She handed me that.
This map, which Pamela drew herself, showed the multiple entrances of Michael Weiss's building. Michael's attorney, Nolan Acevedo.
Do you believe essentially this was a battle plan map?
I believe it was a map that Jake was provided to allow him to get access to Dr. Weiss's apartment without going through the normal security measures.
Pamela says she never gave Jake the knife, and that the map was given to Jake to help care for Calder.
It had the daycare where he was going. It had Dr. Weiss's building.
Jake says Pamela said goodbye that morning with just one goal in mind.
Today's the day. Life is going to be so much better after Michael is, she used the word terminated, after Michael is terminated.
Clutching that hand-drawn map, Jake headed to Michael's Midtown Manhattan high-rise.
He kind of scoped out the building on different sides. It had two separate entrances. Entered through the business entrance.
Jake signed in, writing that he was heading to a tutoring center in the building called Bright Kids. It was marked on the map. He didn't even bother using an alias.
I signed in with my own name. Remember, I was willing to die for this woman. I wasn't trying to hide anything.
Jake went straight to the 12th floor and walked in on Michael in the middle of a session. Jake left the office and waited in a stairwell while Michael finished with the patient.
What are you thinking to yourself? What's going through your head?
I think I was really nervous. I think I wanted to back out, but I didn't have a means to do it because I couldn't go back to Pamela without this done. I felt like I had no choice.
After the patient left, Jake asked Michael for some financial forms for Calder's school. Pamela claims picking up those forms was the only reason Jake was there. But Jake says it was all a ruse to distract Michael while Jake went to the restroom to prepare.
I grabbed the sledgehammer. I put the knife in my pocket. From here on out, I remember bits and pieces.
But according to Michael Weiss's attorney, Michael remembers it all too well.
Jake came out of a bathroom in Michael's office and hit him with a sledgehammer.
Michael managed to duck just in time, missing the full brunt of the 10-pound tool. Still, the sledgehammer made contact with his shoulder. That's when Michael says Jake reached for the knife.
That's when I first stabbed Michael Weiss. And then from there on out, it was a fight.
And then he stabbed Michael 7 or 8 times in various places. The stomach, the back, the chest.
Michael, who's 6'3" and 205 pounds, managed to overpower Jake.
On the ground, standing up, I got stabbed multiple times. I thought that someone was bound to die.
The two men stumbled into the hallway where neighbors heard the commotion.
I think it's a psychologist who might have had a client who went nuts.
Good morning, man. Call on. Patient breathing.
Yeah, but they got a lot of blood. They're losing a lot of blood.
Then, as he sat on the floor bleeding, Jake lifted his cell phone and took that selfie.
Why did you take a selfie?
We were sitting right next to each other, and I was reporting back to Pamela, like, what do I do next?
Jake says Pamela didn't respond. A short time later at the hospital, Jake tried texting her again.
This is what you wrote. In hospital, please come. Michael bleeding badly. Same. I walked into office. He stabbed me with my knife in the heart.
This time, Pamela answered with a single word. Where?
There was no plan for after the attack. I think it was Pamela's plan to just dismiss me and like, oh, well, he tried to kill him, he lost, try again later. I really believe it's her plan to try again later.
Hospital records say Jake was in a manic state after the attack. Pamela eventually showed up at the ER, but was not allowed to see Jake.
I was in full-blown psychotic episode. I was heavily medicated on morphine.
Michael Weiss suffered multiple cuts to his upper torso and legs. He was stitched up and released from the hospital. Jake was still recovering from his own wounds to his chest and hand when the reality of his arrest for attempted murder hit him.
Could Jake have backed out of the attack? See more of the crime scene photos at 48hours.com.
After his arrest for attempted murder, Jake Nolan spent 4 days recovering in the hospital. He then appeared before a judge and was freed on $200,000 bail pending trial. Jake was allowed to fly home to live with his parents outside of Miami.
Ready? What would you have said to Calder one day if he asked you, why did you kill my father?
I don't know. I gave everything for this child. I was willing to kill someone for this child. That alone can only show how sorry I feel when he finds out about this later on in life.
But what of Pamela Bookbinder? Soon after the attack, Michael sued for custody of their son, claiming Pamela was the mastermind. A family court judge considered the evidence in that case, including the Home Depot images, and granted Michael Weiss full custody of Calder and barred Pamela from any contact for 5 years.
The evidence showed, and the family court agreed, that Pamela was involved in the plan or plot to attack and kill Michael.
Despite the evidence presented in family court, Pamela was still not criminally charged in the attack. Why not?
The district attorney's office will not comment. But Michael Weiss's attorney thinks part of the problem is the key accuser in this case.
Jacob, because he contends that he has this history of mental illness, is perhaps not the most reliable witness for the prosecution.
Jake spent much of his time awaiting trial in and out of treatment centers for both his mental problems and drug and alcohol addictions. Despite those efforts, his life almost came to a tragic end in May 2015.
What happened that caused you to be in this hospital bed?
I tried to kill myself. I tried to take my own life.
This time, Jake ended up in a coma after poisoning himself.
This was probably the worst day of my life because they told us they didn't think Jake was going to make it.
Finally, in March 2016, 3.5 years after the attack, Jake's trial gets underway in New York.
The prosecution portrayed Jake as kind of a spoiled rich kid.
Just one of many challenges for the defense.
Jake Nolan was a very unreliable narrator of this event.
For one thing, it wasn't until weeks after the attack that Jake claimed Pamela had manipulated him. Another problem?
He gave at least 3 different versions of what happened. Each was meant to cast him in the most innocent light possible.
In one version, Jake tried to put the blame on Michael Weiss.
When the first responders showed up, he immediately pointed the finger at Dr. Weiss and said, "He stabbed me."
In another account, Jake told investigators he never swung the sledgehammer.
This was a big hammer. I couldn't even lift the thing up.
Jake claims he only brought the sledgehammer and knife because he was afraid of Michael. Perhaps most stunning of all, a third version.
He claims that Dr. Weiss pulled the sledgehammer out of his bag and attacked him first with it. So that really doesn't make any sense. I mean, how would Dr. Weiss even know that the sledgehammer is in the bag?
Jake has said he had been convinced the attack on Michael was the only way to save Calder. But at trial, prosecutors hinted at another motive. Michael Weiss had taken out a $1.5 million life insurance policy.
The beneficiary was his son, who probably at the time was 3 or 4 years old.
But there was a catch. Just 3 days before the attack, Michael agreed to make Pamela the policy's irrevocable trustee.
What does that mean in English?
Irrevocable means can't be taken back.
So if Michael dies?
If Michael passed away, the child would get the $1.5 million, but she would be the person that controlled the money for the child.
Jake insisted he had no clue before the attack that money may have been involved.
I had no idea. Pamela never mentioned that to me.
Her plan was for you to kill him.
But the most damning evidence came from Jake himself. The prosecution's psychiatrist interviewed Jake before trial, and clips from the exam were played to jurors. In one, a shockingly frank discussion about another item Pamela bought at Home Depot.
What was the zip ties for?
She wanted me to torture Michael, which I didn't tell her, but I wasn't down to do that.
So you were down to kill but not torture?
Yeah.
Okay. What did she want you to do to torture him?
She wanted me to cut off his balls, she said.
That was a line too far for you?
Yeah.
How come?
I don't know, I've never heard anyone before.
The prosecution saw this as a stunning admission. On tape, at least, it appears Jake was a willing participant in planning the attack and could draw a line when he wanted to.
The crux of the prosecution's argument here is that this is not some babbling idiot that didn't know which way was up.
I think I was in control up to a degree, but the deal was to kill Michael Weiss. The deal wasn't to torture Michael Weiss.
It might seem like Jake is splitting hairs, but one of Jake's lawyers, Stephen Brownstein, says that's exactly how Jake's mind was working. In fact, it's why he and his legal team argue a risky defense: diminished capacity.
You're going to have to admit that your client did the crime, but his capacity to establish the intent, the motive to commit that crime, he lacked, and therefore he should be found not guilty.
I understand that the prosecution feels that clearly Jake never had a gun to his head. In my opinion, psychologically speaking, he did.
Dr. Sasha Bardet, who testified for the defense at trial, says Pamela had replaced Jake's free will with her own.
It's very much like a cult where there is a shaping of the person's thought processes to meet the cult's ideals. It's a small cult. It has 2 people in it. There's the cult leader, Pamela Bookbinder, and the cult member, Jake Nolan.
Jake never takes the stand. Pamela Bookbinder never even set foot in the courtroom. Neither side called her to testify. In March of 2016, after a 2-week trial, the jury began its deliberations. In less than an hour,
The jury comes back. We have reached a verdict. Guilty.
Guilty of attempted murder.
It's unjust. I'm no harm to society.
And a little over 3 months later, the judge describes the attack as an act of extreme brutality and violence, and sentences Jake Nolan to 9.5 years in prison.
You're in just such shock.
I was like somebody just crushed me from top to bottom, just totally took my heart right out of me.
And what of Michael Weiss, the man Jake Nolan would have killed if the murder plot had succeeded?
He's been traumatized by this.
I know what I did was very serious, but there is also another party that needs to take responsibility too.
And that person is?
It's Pamela Bookbinder.
And her role in this sordid case is about to take...
Let's wait till she comes down.
...a dramatic turn.
Pamela Bookbinder, Peter Van Sant from 48 Hours.
No, she's not.
I have a simple question.
No,
Why did
she's
you
not
buy that
interested.
sledgehammer?
Pamela Bookbinder, the most talked about woman during Jake Nolan's trial, had always managed to elude the public. But we caught up with Pamela about 4 months after Jake Nolan was sentenced.
I have a simple question. Why did you buy that sledgehammer?
You know what?
You can answer that question. Were you going to do some home improvement, or were you buying a murder weapon?
Out of her face. I can
can't touch the
or
camera.
get it out of her face. Get it out
Pamela,
of
you
her
can
face.
answer that question.
But on October 19th, 2017, almost 5 years after Michael Weiss was attacked, the law finally caught up with Dr. Pamela Bookbinder. Bookbinder was arrested at a friend's house outside Syracuse, New York. She was charged with second-degree attempted murder and first-degree attempted assault. The Manhattan District Attorney accused Bookbinder of masterminding the plot to send Jake Nolan to murder her ex-boyfriend and the father of her son, Michael Weiss.
I'm not guilty.
At the time, Jake Nolan would not comment on Pamela Bookbinder's arrest, but Michael Weiss's attorney did.
I was not surprised when she was indicted and arrested. The prosecutor's office said months ago during the Nolan trial that they thought she was involved, and I think the evidence against her is significant.
Pamela is innocent. I'm telling you that.
Pamela Bookbinder hired 2 top New York defense attorneys, Ronald Fischetti and Eric Franz,
Pamela Bookbinder had nothing to do with that.
who say that this video of Bookbinder buying that sledgehammer is just a sideshow.
Pamela Bookbinder is an educated psychiatrist, not Wile E. Coyote. She didn't plan to orchestrate a murder with a sledgehammer that the man couldn't pick up.
Bookbinder's attorneys argued before 2 judges that their client should be granted bail, and her family offered to put up a $1.5 million bond to guarantee she wouldn't run off. This despite the fact that when she was arrested, she had in her possession her passport, birth certificate, and her son Calder's expired passport.
The entire world has fallen on this woman, periodically, methodically, over the last 5 years. And what did she do? She engaged counsel, she engaged a bondsman, she stayed around and made no attempts to flee.
Her attorneys contend that the case has essentially been solved, and that Jake Nolan is the sole perpetrator.
He admitted everything.
When you walked into Dr. Michael Weiss's office with that duffel bag, with the weapons that were inside, what did you intend to do?
You know, I intended to kill him.
Bookbinder's legal team later pointed to what they say is an incriminating new piece of evidence found buried in their legal file. A note allegedly written by Jake Nolan to his mother Debbie after the attack in 2012 as he recovered in the hospital. It reads, "Pamela has nothing to do with this."
This man acted completely on his own, so it's a very, very crucial piece of evidence.
Remember, Jake's defense team said he wrote this letter while he was in what his doctors called a manic state and heavily medicated.
That note probably can't be admitted into evidence in any event because it's hearsay.
After the judge heard these arguments, he refused to grant Bookbinder bail. She was ordered held in New York's notorious Rikers Island jail, where she remained for 5 years through legal wrangling and the pandemic. Then on September 7th, 2022, in a pretrial hearing, she made a stunning announcement. She accepted a deal to spend 11 years in prison in exchange for pleading guilty to attempted assault and a lesser charge in connection with Dr. Weiss's attack, seemingly bringing her case to a close. But just 1 month later, Bookbinder turned her routine sentencing on its head, with her lawyers telling Judge Farber that she wanted to withdraw her plea. She claimed on the day she agreed to the deal, she was exposed to mace on Rikers Island. She did not take her medication, and she inadvertently got a contact high when someone was smoking drugs on her bus ride to court. But Judge Thomas Farber would have none of it. He ordered the plea deal to stand and the sentencing to continue. Dr. Weiss showed up to make a victim's impact statement. He did not want to be recorded while he read his remarks, telling the court that he suffers from PTSD and that he believes Bookbinder has so much hatred for him that she will do anything in her power to harm him, even after she is released from prison. Prosecutor Joel Seidemann was next, and he did not hold back.
I think it's necessary to make the record straight. The defendant tried to have Dr. Michael Weiss murdered. She hated his guts. She sought to destroy him because of their failed relationship. She stood to control $1.5 million in life insurance on his life in the name of his son.
Bookbinder's attorney had heard enough.
Objection, Your Honor, has nothing to do with the underlying allegations in this case. It's a sentencing, not a lynching.
I understand, Mr. Franz, but I don't control what the DA says at sentence.
And Seidemann kept going.
She's on video. All of her genius, in terms of academic genius, didn't mean that she could outwit the NYPD, who immediately went to Home Depot when they saw the sledgehammer and they knew where it came from. And she sent Jacob Nolan with a map.
Bookbinder's lawyer finally had his chance to speak.
Well, that was a rather unpleasant experience following a negotiated disposition. The bottom line is, her pleading guilty is not a license to step on her throat and just say whatever you want. That's an injustice. She stands ready for sentence, Your Honor.
Ms. Buckbinder, you can speak if you wish to. You don't have to.
She was brief.
If there was one true statement Mr. Seidemann said, I missed it.
Judge Farber had the final say.
There can be no doubt that if you plot to bash somebody's head in with a sledgehammer, that the intent is to cause his death.
He then reminded everyone that he presided over Jacob Nolan's trial back in 2017.
The compelling and powerful evidence at that trial supported Mr. Nolan's account that Ms. Buckbinder planned to brutally murder Dr. Weiss.
Farber then sentenced Bookbinder to serve 11 years in prison, and he also issued an order of protection for Dr. Weiss. And just before officers took Bookbinder away, she turned to her family and friends, who blew kisses at her. Defense attorney Monica Nejatim says that in 2027, Pamela Bookbinder will be free to start her life over and even reach out to her son.
There's no question about her love for her son.
A son with secrets.
He just lied to everybody.
His parents vanish.
You know, cars go off the road. Things happen.
What happened to the Haldersons?
Not making any sense, and it's taking weirder and weirder turns.
Nobody saw this coming.
48 Hours, next on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Amy wrote, "Shadows are created around us whenever something or someone blocks the light. We are created to live in the light. He is calling me out of the darkness. Turn toward the light and the truth."
Amy's outlet was her journaling. She wrote to me about the Bible and having faith. I believe that her faith was important to her because she lived by her faith. She was the salt of the earth, genuine and loving. I found out that Amy had passed in a phone call from our mutual friend. In the next sentence, I found out how she had passed. It's not a phone call, you want to get.
911, the sign is recorded. What's the address of your emergency?
Hi, this is Brian Fanion. I'm at North Road. My wife just shot herself. Can you send me some help?
All right, Brian, we'll get him right out there, okay?
I remember my supervisor telling me we have a death investigation in Westfield, and it's a police officer's wife. That was a rarity to me. I had not experienced a case like that.
She's gone. I'm sorry. God.
Okay. Are you sure?
Yes, yes.
Brian's role at the Westfield Police Department, he was their evidence guy in the Detective Bureau.
We both knew Brian. He was very well respected.
When you walked in the Fanion house, what did you see?
Then I walked into the dining room, and that's when I observed the body of Amy Fanion and a pool of blood on the floor.
With a gunshot to the right side of her head.
I saw the .45 caliber Smith & Wesson firearm on the stairs that led to the breezeway. There was a police radio, paperwork, mail, and so forth, chairs pushed about.
And on top of this dining room table, you had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich intact on a plate. You had an empty plate that had some blood smear on it.
What was Brian's demeanor when you arrived?
He seemed like he was in a state of shock. He was looking straight ahead.
She snapped. The gun just exploded. It was just so quick. Didn't hesitate at all. I'm the only one that could make her that angry.
I offered him my condolences. I told Brian that, that I was going to conduct a thorough investigation, that it was going to be by the numbers.
Is it standard for the district attorney's office to be involved in a suicide investigation?
Yes. Part of our duties at the district attorney's office was to investigate all deaths.
What can this deceased tell us about what happened right before she found herself in that state? So I'm taking in everything that I can about that scene, and I saw the entry wound to her head. It didn't seem right in that moment. How would something like that happen?
It was 1 p.m. on May 8, 2018, when Massachusetts State Police detectives arrived at a farmhouse in Westfield. 51-year-old Amy Fanion lay dead in the dining room from a single gunshot wound to the head. Detective Mike McNally.
Amy was essentially in a pile of blood that was beginning to congeal under her left side.
Amy's husband, Brian Fanion, a detective in the Westfield Police Department, had called 911 minutes earlier, reporting that his wife had shot herself. The dining room, rearranged to accommodate medical personnel, was in disarray as detectives worked to identify clues of what may have happened.
There was a blood spatter around that window frame from that dining room into the breezeway. There was a pair of glasses that looked like it had some kind of red-brown spatter on it.
And then there was the bullet. Detectives Brendan O'Toole and Mike Blanchett.
The actual projectile was in that front enclosed porch area. The spent shell casing was still in the dining room.
We could see the direction that it traveled through Amy's head. That round impacted that dresser, came to a rest right around there in the breezeway.
Brian was sitting in a chair with his back to the wall. And he's with the chief of police from the Westfield Police Department, who's talking with him. Everyone was in a state of shock.
Everyone, including Amy's brother, Eric Hansen, who told detectives that he had just finished playing disc golf behind the house when he heard Brian's cry for help. And that's when he walked into the house, saw Amy on the floor, a gun next to her, and Brian holding Amy's hand.
So he picked up the gun himself and moved it out of Brian's reach.
Because he was worried about Brian's state of mind, having just lost his wife.
Yes.
What kind of gun was used?
It was a Smith & Wesson M&P 45, Brian Fanion's duty weapon.
Did that give you any pause that it was Brian Fanion's weapon?
Yes, it gave me pause. At this point, I know that I'm gonna really do a detailed investigation.
To avoid conflict of interest, O'Toole said he decided that his unit, the Massachusetts State Police, would be the sole investigators, and he wanted to get Brian away from the house to get a statement.
I asked if he would accompany me to the Massachusetts State Police Barracks in Russell, and I took a tape-recorded statement from him. Tuesday, May 8th, it's 2:41 p.m. I'm with Brian Fanion. Brian, do you understand I got a recorder on right now?
Yes.
Brian told Detective O'Toole that he left his office at the Westfield Police Station around 11:45 a.m. and drove to North Road to meet his wife, who was on her way home to prepare their lunch.
What was she making?
Butter and jelly sandwiches.
Brian said that when he arrived, they continued an argument from the night prior. An argument that had gotten pretty heated that evening.
Oh, when you say heated, I guess, well,
Just, I don't know. She just was very angry.
okay. What was the argument about?
I'm retiring soon. We're discussing what each of us expects retirement to be.
Brian said he told Amy that he didn't want to spend his retirement maintaining their 200-year-old home, which Amy still loved. They also discussed their aging dog and his reluctance to get another one.
You know, I don't want to be tied down by a dog.
Yeah.
She always wants to have a dog. I want to travel more than she does.
According to Brian, that afternoon during lunch, Amy told him she had scheduled them to attend a family member's play on the day Brian wanted to attend a disc golf tournament.
And I just said, no, I don't like that stuff. Why would you commit me without asking?
That's when, according to Brian, things soon took a turn for the worse.
I took my gun out of the holster and put it on our hutch because I had to use the bathroom.
Where's the hutch located?
In the dining room.
Brian said he closed the bathroom door, and when he came out, Amy had the gun in her hand.
She has the gun pointed up to the right side of her head. What did you hear her say?
I think she said, I guess you don't want me around, or you don't want to be around me.
Was she seated or?
No, she stood up.
She was standing? Okay.
According to Brian, he was 4 to 5 feet away when he tried to stop Amy from pulling the trigger.
Tried to get to her. I almost did. The gun just exploded. It was just so quick. Didn't hesitate at all. I just went over and I just held her hands. Tried to. Just held her hands.
911, the sign is recorded. What's the address?
Brian called 911 and yelled out to Amy's brother Eric for help.
Eric, how do you spell your last name? Hansen.
Hansen.
Eric told detectives that Brian said he and Amy had been having a tense argument.
And she grabbed the gun. He just was so distraught.
What did he say? What they were arguing about?
No, I was just trying to console him and say, it's not your fault, it's not your fault.
Amy's death had shocked the Westfield community.
My name is Stephanie Barry, and I'm a reporter for The Republican in Springfield, Massachusetts. Amy's maiden name was Hansen. She came from a fairly large family. She and her sisters were all known as some of the prettiest girls in school, some of the smartest, and some of the nicest.
It was 1983 when 16-year-old Amy met 19-year-old Brian Fanion. Fanion came from a long line of police officers and politicians, and in Westfield, the Fanion name was a source of pride.
The Fanions were kind of like the Kennedys of Westfield. They were well regarded.
Brian and Amy tied the knot in 1985, and the couple eventually had 2 children, Travis and Victoria. Amy's close friend, Terry Liccardi, says Amy loved being a stay-at-home mom.
Amy's focus was raising her children. She thought that being a parent was the best job in the whole world.
The Fanions, deeply committed to their faith, dedicated their lives to God and community service, with Brian serving as a church deacon and working as a missionary to build wells in Mexico. After 30 years of marriage, the Fanions were planning their next phase of life when those plans derailed.
Is there any knowledge that Amy Fanion had any mental health issues or suffered from depression?
So I asked Brian, and he mentioned many years earlier when she was having some psychological issues and was on medicine for a period of time. Other than that, nothing recent.
But what Brian did stress was that Amy had bouts with anger.
She had a temper, but she hid it well from everyone but me. She only got that angry when we were alone.
Midway into the interview, Detective O'Toole asked Brian if there were any female friends in his life.
I have a woman who lives in Pittsfield that I met recently. I did a mission trip to Mexico, and we became good friends.
What's that lady's name?
Corey.
Does she have a last name or Corey?
Yeah, Knowles. Knowles. You guys aren't going to contact her, are you?
For Detective O'Toole, Brian Fanion's admitted friendship with another woman raised questions. Brian had told detectives that Corinne Knowles, known as Corey, was a fellow missionary at a nearby church. The two met in November 2017 on a mission trip in Mexico, and a friendship developed. But it had never gone beyond that.
An emotional affair?
He said there was some flirting, but he qualified it that it wasn't
sexual.
It was not his term was, it was not a friends with benefits.
At the end of the interview, Detective O'Toole asked Brian to turn over his personal phone.
I had turned off the recorder. And that's when Brian told me, he was like, you're going to see some things on there, and it's not what it appears to be.
A red flag for you?
Yeah, there's several red flags. As an investigator, you have to keep an open mind.
Within a week of Brian's interview, on May 14, 2018, Amy's wake was held. Brian planted a tree in nearby Stanley Park in his wife's memory. But the investigation into her sudden death was just beginning. Detectives recovered a treasure trove of deleted text messages from Brian's phone.
There were just hundreds of texts that expanded the relationship that he was having with Corey.
On May 7th, the day before Amy died, Brian and Corey exchanged 72 text messages until 9:47 p.m. that evening. In one exchange at 9:23 p.m., Brian writes, "Good night, my love. I hope you have wonderful dreams of amazing days and nights to come." And Corey responds, "Good night, my love. I will dream of you and all that the future holds for us." The next morning at 10:30 a.m., Corey texts, "When can I hold you again?" To which Brian responds, "Not soon enough," turning into a very long morning.
And within an hour or two, Amy Fanion is dead.
Yes.
Head en route for a female party who possibly intentionally shot herself. Police en route.
Brian has not been entirely truthful to us at this point. And so we want to speak with him again.
On May 17th, 2018, 3 days after Amy's wake, Brian Fanion arrived at the district attorney's state police office for another round of questioning.
Brian, so we just needed to, clarify some things. We do know your Miranda rights. I'm going to read them off this form.
Now, the other day you didn't do this. Has something changed?
So you're not under arrest or anything.
Well, I know that.
And on that same day across town, detectives met with Corey Knowles to learn more about her involvement with Brian.
If somebody was to say, "Who's Corey? Who are you?"
Corey Knowles, a 48-year-old wife, grandmother, and member of her church's choir, told detectives that Brian's friendship helped her work through a troubled second marriage.
Brian's very easy to talk to. Nothing but affirmation and love, and I'm here for you.
But over time, their relationship moved from friendship to flirtation.
Did I feel passion for him? Absolutely.
By April 16th, 2018, 5 months into Brian and Corey's relationship, their texting gave way to something more intimate when Corey visited Brian's house before they left for volunteer work.
Was that the first time you were intimate that you kissed on that April day, the 16th?
Yeah.
And then where was that?
I want to say the kitchen. Because Bill and I got there before Amy got home.
Corey told detectives that by late April, she and Brian were having passionate makeout sessions in her truck.
Brian left work early, met up with Corey in Westfield at Stanley Park, and they made out. There was some sexual touching.
But according to Corey, Brian could not perform.
A little bit more like, because I'm still married to Amy.
We've seen the text messages. In all honesty, Brian, it looks like it's a lot more than a friendship,
I know it escalated, and I'm completely embarrassed by it, ashamed of it. It shouldn't happen.
But a lot of people have affairs and
Correct.
don't kill their wife.
Correct.
Detective O'Toole then asks Brian to go back over his statement of what happened, beginning at the moment when Brian said he placed his gun on the hutch and went inside the bathroom.
All right, so you come out of the bathroom, right? And she's at the table. Where just indicate, like, where between the table and the hutch? And a chair right there?
I don't know if she was sitting or standing. I think she was standing.
I mean...
No, I think she was sitting.
Now, when we were trying to get these step-by-step details, he seemed to be wavering.
So you come out of the bathroom, okay, and then what's the first thing that happens?
I just remember her saying that you obviously don't want me around.
And then Detective O'Toole asked Brian to demonstrate what Amy did with the gun.
Just remember seeing her hand come up with the gun.
towards her head.
Yeah.
So she puts it to the side of her head?
Yes.
Okay. And where was the gun when it went off? Was it in the same?
To her head.
But there is a problem. What Brian did not know was that a CSI report and Amy's autopsy results had arrived.
The gunshot entrance wound was not consistent with a self-inflicted wound.
Fair to say it took this case in a whole new direction?
Yes.
During the second interview with Brian Fanion, detectives O'Toole and Blanchett found themselves facing a challenge that tested their experience as investigators.
This is not a normal interview for myself and Mike. We've done thousands of interviews. You know, we're pretty good at it, but it's hard when it's a police officer because he knows exactly how we work. It was a difficult interview. There's a problem.
Detectives laid out what they considered to be crucial evidence in their investigation.
There's no indication whatsoever so far that she had a gun close to the side of her head.
Well, then you're wrong, because she did, because I saw it and it happened.
You know,
how do you say there's no indication?
Well, I mean, that's what it's showing us right now.
The medical examiner listed Amy's manner of death as undetermined. And combined with CSI findings, investigators did not believe that Amy died of a self-inflicted wound.
I mean, there's no doubt she was shot, but the question is, from what distance?
It was right freaking there, I'm telling you. Well, do what you need to, but I'm telling you, it was right there.
In Amy's case, distance mattered. This is because with self-inflicted gunshot wounds, debris known as gunshot residue is expelled from the firearm and leaves a distinct pattern on and inside the wound known as stippling, as demonstrated here.
Like, Brian, you understand, like, guns and stippling and all that stuff?
I do, and I can't...
There's none on her, Brian. There's none on her.
There has to be, because the gun was there, right freaking there.
There's none on her.
Then they're wrong. I'm telling you, they're flat out wrong, because it was right freaking there.
The other option is you got pissed and you're a few feet away and you shot her in the head when she's sitting eating a peanut butter sandwich.
Didn't happen.
Didn't happen?
Did not happen.
With Fanion's affair exposed and CSI reports in hand, detectives suspected Fanion had likely shot his wife, but they still needed more evidence. On May 24, 2018, detectives obtained a search warrant for Fanion's home, and when detectives arrived,
Brian asked if I was there to arrest him, and I told him I wasn't, and then he asked me if I thought he did it.
Were you surprised he asked you that?
I was noting it. I didn't know how to feel, and I didn't answer his question.
Detectives took additional measurements to analyze the trajectory of the bullet. Fanion's home electronics were confiscated, and at the same time, his desktop computer and laptop at the Westfield police station were seized for data extraction.
Do you see any signs that Brian Fanion planned to kill his wife? Any evidence that points to that?
We see a totality of all the evidence here. We're not the fact finders. We're detectives, so we collect all this information, and then it's going to be presented. Someone else is going to make a determination on that.
And that someone would be Hampton County Assistant District Attorney Mary Sandstrom. New to the Homicide Division, Sandstrom had arrived in Massachusetts by way of New York.
Is it fair to say you were a fish out of water a bit?
It's always hard not being from the area in which you prosecute. It's a very small, very intimately connected town. So yes, you're never at an advantage where you don't know everybody by name.
Adding to the difficulty, Brian Fanion is a detective.
Yes. Yeah.
And respected.
Very much in that community.
As spring gave way to summer, Corey ended her relationship with Fanion, and by early 2019, Fanion retired from the police force. The investigation into Amy's death continued.
We're still trying to get some testing done because we want to have as strong a case as possible before we go in before the grand jury.
And a complication in the form of a letter was among the case files. Amy's family members expressed their unfailing support of Brian Fanion, saying, "We are certain Amy took her own life." The letter was signed by Amy's siblings and even her own mother.
That's got to be tough for you.
It's an awkward position for a prosecutor where your victim family isn't supporting you. It was an odd spot to be in.
An odd spot, perhaps, but not a deterrent. On November 6, 2019, 17 months after Amy died, detectives arrived at Brian Fanion's door.
Brian came to the dining room door pretty quickly, as I recall it, and he said something to the effect of, "Come in." Then Mike Blanchette began to describe to Brian, "Brian, we have an arrest warrant for you."
Police say Brian Fanion told them that his wife shot herself with his gun while he was at home on a lunch break last year.
I remember telling him, "Put your hands behind your back." I took out my handcuffs.
Through their investigation, they only solidified their suspicion that Brian pulled the trigger.
He was eating assorted nuts, was popping some in his mouth, and as he put his hands behind his back, he let him drop to the floor. We transported Brian to the Russell State Police Barracks. And he's processed, photographed, fingerprinted.
He stands accused of killing his wife in what was originally reported.
I assessed a feeling of despair on Brian's face, like, I can't believe this is happening.
Stephanie Barry, a crime reporter at the Republican newspaper, recalls the unusual scene that played out 15 miles away in Springfield, Massachusetts, inside the Hampton County Superior Court in early November 2019.
There's no one who spent any amount of time in Westfield who didn't know who Brian Fanion was. It was a pretty full house, and the kind of palpable shock remained throughout the entire proceeding.
Fanion, who appeared for his initial arraignment, entered a plea of not guilty, and sitting right behind him were members of both Brian's and Amy's family.
I can't think of another instance when I've seen the family of a victim sticking up for the accused murderer of their loved one.
And despite the absence of support from members of Amy's family, ADA Sandstrom continued to build her case.
What was Amy Fanion like?
She sounds like a fairy tale. Giving, selfless, completely dedicated to her family.
According to Sandstrom, the night before Amy died, she was making a gift for an upcoming baby shower that she planned to attend and was texting her daughter Victoria.
Did anyone ever say that Amy was ever suicidal?
She wasn't a person who was ready to die. Amy was healthy, she was happy.
What do you think Brian Fanion's motive was?
He was ready to start a new chapter of his life that did not include Amy Fanion. He's chosen his life partner in Corey. Amy's the only thing standing in the way now.
And that's always the million-dollar question. Why not divorce?
He can't divorce Amy for how he's going to be seen in this community. Divorce is public, but in his mind, murder doesn't have to be.
The trial started today for a former Westfield police officer who's accused of murdering his wife.
On February 23, 2023, in what would be Westfield's most publicized case, Brian Fanion's trial began. He faced a life sentence for the first-degree murder of his wife. 48 Hours made several interview requests to Brian Fanion, his attorney Jeffrey Brown, as well as family members of both Amy and Brian, but never received a response.
This is a big case, a lot of attention. How are you feeling?
For any trial, you're always nervous. And this was probably the most high-profile case I've ever done.
Opening statements revealed conflicting accounts of the circumstances surrounding Amy Fanion's death.
The defendant was a deacon at Wyven Union Church and an officer for the Westfield Police Department. The evidence will show that while the defendant was repulsed by continuing his marriage with Amy, he couldn't divorce her either, leaving him trapped. And once that evidence is before you, I will ask you to find the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree.
Fanion's defense focused on Amy's anger issues and claimed she suffered from anxiety. Brown alleged that on the day of Amy's death, an argument over Brian's retirement plans and his refusal to attend a family member's play pushed her over the edge.
In the days before Amy shot herself, Amy was very mad at him. You had to tread lightly around Amy for fear of setting her off. And at the conclusion of the evidence in this case, I'll ask that you find Brian Fanion not guilty. Thank you.
Anna Hansen, Amy's younger sister, was the first witness for the prosecution. She was the only family member who signed the letter of support that willingly testified against Brian Fanion. Anna stated that during the investigation into Amy's death, her brother-in-law confided that he was worried about searches he had conducted on his computer.
I asked him what that search was, and he said how to make a murder look like a suicide.
He specifically said he searched, quote, how to make a murder look like a suicide.
Those were his exact words.
Anna told the jury that when she asked her brother-in-law why he made this search, Fanion told her that Amy asked him to do it after they watched a CSI show. It was a show that Anna questioned if Amy had ever watched.
Did she ever say that she liked those shows?
And she never shared that with me.
The prosecution's next witness was Fanion's former lover, a divorced Corey Knowles, now Corey Hasty, who told the jury that Fanion was concerned about ending his marriage.
Did the defendant ever talk about what could happen to him if he were to divorce Amy?
Yes. If Amy was to ever leave, or he divorced her, that she would take him for everything that he's got because he wouldn't be able to sustain on retirement at that point.
The prosecution called Tom Forrest from the Cyber Crimes Unit. All of Fanion's devices were examined, but it was Fanion's office computer that produced some curious results. Forrest said Fanion visited
common and dangerous poisons, which drug causes the most deaths each year, 16 common household items that could kill you.
But it's only when this affair starts up that all of these incriminating searches start to appear.
Carbon monoxide, the invisible killer, household poisons, common prescription overdoses.
And 11 days prior to Amy's death, Fanion used his office computer to view a news report on YouTube called What Gunshot Residue Tests Tell Us.
He wasn't assigned to any active investigations in April and May of 2018 that would necessitate looking up gunshot residue. Nobody in the Westfield Police Department does gunshot residue testing.
I was trying to keep a very open mind about what the evidence was going to show, but I didn't think that was great news for Brian Fanion.
Morning, Your Honor.
Detective John Shrine, a ballistic expert and a crucial witness for the prosecution, testified that Amy's wound was not self-inflicted, citing the absence of gunshot residue near the wound, coupled with the trajectory of the bullet. Shrine concluded that Amy Fanion was shot from a downward angle and at a distance of at least 18 inches, not at close range as Fanion had claimed.
Could you form an opinion as to whether or not the defendant's firearm was discharged at a distance of 18 inches or greater?
Over 18 inches, without anything intervening, that's correct.
After 12 days of testimony and 27 witnesses, the prosecution rested. But waiting in the wings was a defense poised to introduce a significant element that could potentially unravel the DA's case.
Any prosecutor who's not worried about a defense probably isn't a good prosecutor.
Defense attorney Jeffrey Brown, whose client faced life in prison, launched a counterattack when he cross-examined Fanion's former lover, Corey Hasty. According to the state, Fanion's affair was the primary motive for murdering his wife. But Hasty admitted to the defense that when she ended their relationship, Fanion didn't try to stop her.
When ultimately you ended it with Brian, his response was, okay. Isn't that right?
To my recollection.
He didn't say to you, oh my God, I killed Amy for you and you're leaving me? He never said that, right?
Correct.
And what about the websites Detective Forrest from the Cybercrimes Unit said Fanion visited?
Carbon monoxide, the invisible killer, common and dangerous poisons, 16 common household items that could kill you.
The defense argued that some of the websites he visited were related to an aging house, an old wood-burning stove, and the potential hazards it might pose to a young family member.
Did you know that the Fanions were beginning to have a young niece, a child, stay in their home during that time frame?
No, I did not.
But what the defense couldn't reconcile were Fanion searches about gunshot residue days before Amy's death. And there was Amy's sister Anna, the only family member who willingly testified for the prosecution. She claimed that Brian told her he searched how to make a murder look like a suicide on his computer.
You didn't find any sites that were searched or visited relating to the terms how to make a murder look like a suicide. Isn't that true?
That is true.
The defense narrowed its focus and scrutinized Amy's personality by cross-examining Amy's own mother, Patricia Tarrant.
Did your daughter Amy have a temper?
Yes.
A temper, according to Amy's sister Holly, that would typically be directed toward her husband.
Well, did she snap at Brian in front of you?
She would. I was embarrassed for him. You don't usually talk to your husband kind of in that way. Maybe you reprimand a child, but not a husband.
But would Amy's temper lead to an impulsive decision such as grabbing Fanion's gun? According to Amy's son, Travis, it would.
I could easily picture or envision her grabbing the gun impulsively to make a point that she picked it up intending to complete a trigger pull and shoot herself.
But what would explain the lack of gunshot residue on Amy?
Her wound is consistent with a close-range gunshot wound based
Alexander Jason, a senior certified crime scene analyst, testified for the defense.
That's the foundation of the whole prosecution. And this whole idea that it had to be 18 inches because of the absence of gunshot residue is not valid.
Jason says the lack of gunshot residue was not due to distance. It was due to Amy's hair.
What could Amy Fanion's hair have told us?
Amy Fanion had very dense, thick hair. That will block the gunshot residue.
Jason's research, Effect of Hair on the Deposition of Gunshot Residue, was published by the FBI's Forensic Science Journal in 2004. Jason says there could have been gunshot residue, commonly known as GSR, embedded in Amy's hair. The crime scene analyst did not test her hair.
What they should have done is taken the hair and then analyzed those little specks to see if they're gunshot residue or not, which was a mistake.
Jason's testimony was limited at trial. To support his theory, he and his daughter Juliana met us at a gun range in California to demonstrate what may have happened to Amy Fanion.
I'm going to fire 2 times.
Using a .45 caliber gun and ammunition identical to what was found at the scene, Jason fired a single round into a mound of hair, backed by a ballistic skin simulant.
So you just shot a .45 caliber gun 3 inches away through hair.
Yes, Amy Fanion had considerable hair, maybe more dense than this, where the bullet entered. And the hair will act as a filter and prevent the gunshot residue from reaching her skin.
For comparison, Jason positioned the gun at the same distance using identical ammunition and fired into the skin simulant without hair.
And I pull this away.
Wow.
You can see there's a big difference. Now look at that. That's a very clean wound. That's a very dirty wound.
That's incredible. All from the hair.
All from the hair. The hair acted as a filter
Pretty fascinating.
While Jason believes this scenario is what happened to Amy Fanion, he stopped short of saying whether or not Fanion killed his wife.
The hair filtered that stuff out.
But what he does believe is that basing the case on the absence of gunshot residue is wrong.
And he should not be convicted on that basis. That's my bottom line.
After 40 witnesses and 15 days of testimony, closing arguments.
She raised the gun up to her head in a fit of rage and in effect caused her own death.
This defendant murdered Amy Fanion with deliberate premeditation.
On March 21st, 2023, the jury got the case. And after 2 days of deliberations, the verdict.
Foreperson, what say you? Is the defendant guilty or not guilty? Guilty. Guilty of what? Guilty of what degree?
Brian Fanion was found guilty of the first-degree murder of his wife, Amy Fanion, and sentenced to life without parole that same day.
Brian's side of the aisle just collapsed in sobs. These people loved Brian and sincerely thought that he was innocent.
For Assistant District Attorney Mary Sandstrom, Fanion's conviction was bittersweet and hard-won.
It's never a victory. Amy Fanion should be here. She should be with her daughter and son and her now grandchildren, and she's not. And it was all for nothing so that Brian Fanion could enjoy his life and end hers.
Was the Ferris family a happy family?
No. A wealthy man's murder leads to a mother's unthinkable accusation.
I want everyone, especially my children, to know I didn't do this. I know who did.
48 Hours is all new. CBS next and streaming on Paramount Plus.